Today we have Scott with us, who has been around for a few months at least, and comes with his project Beastie board. And the plan today is that he will explain to us what it is that he is building, with a small demo, I believe, and hopefully an invitation to participate and to map who we are and other things that might emerge. So yeah, thanks for joining. I believe it will be like around 20 minutes, right, Scott? And then we can move on to like practicing or questions
Yeah,
or whatever.
I guess it could be about 20 minutes. So I was thinking, I don't know, I haven't done a huge amount of planning, but I've got a couple of things to go over. But yeah, maybe 20 minutes and then we can just kind of hang out for a bit and just go into a bit of an informal, just a bit of a chat. So we'll see.
Perfect. Whenever you are ready.
Okay, yeah, sure. I'll get going then. Okay, so to get started, to introduce the board for anyone who is not yet familiar. I'll give a bit of background on where it came from, where the whole project came from, where the idea came from, and then how it was designed. And then what I think it could do now for a community, and how I think it could help to grow a token, for example, amongst maybe some other things. So I've been working on this for about 4 years, so quite a while. And basically, it got started from a project called the $1 Million Homepage, which was released a couple of years even before Bitcoin. So I think it was 2011. So I'll just show you that now. So this is the $1 Million Homepage, right? And it's um, very colorful. It's almost like being in Piccadilly Circus, where every kind of but basically it's a lot of adverts. So this guy, college kid from the UK, he said he had the idea to sell 1,000 by 1,000 pixels, so 1 million pixels, and he sold plots of 10 by 10 pixels. So for example, you know, like this is a 10 by 10 plot, and you could buy it for $100. Okay. And over a period of about 3 months, he sold all of the pixels. And this happened in 2011-ish. I can't remember the exact date, but and this was an extremely like it was a huge success in terms of his goal, right? Because it's very, very tightly scoped. It's very simple. You just literally just buy a 10 by 10 plot for $100, throw $100 in there, and you get to own a piece of internet history. Okay. That's what he was selling. And it was very simple and it worked. And it generated a lot of attention in its time. And it was even in some big newspapers like the Times of the British newspaper, the Times. They bought a 20 by, I don't know if that's 140 or something, pixel plot. And so yeah, so it was kind of a big deal. But the thing is that it lasted for a couple of months. It was like it just generated kind of some buzz during that time, and then it was finished. Okay, so that was it, and I thought it was pretty cool. I'm not necessarily vouching for the final presentation, because it does look a bit of a mess. But I thought, like, wow, that was really weird. Like, he launched this thing, and they kind of co-created this 2D space with a bunch of different adverts, and then it was just finished. and then it was just done, and that was it. And nobody kind of, for some reason, people were just like satisfied with it. Um, and I wasn't, I guess. I thought, well, why couldn't it continue? You know, why, if there was all this attention on this space for that time, why can't this idea of a 2D collaborative, maybe financial, economic space have some kind of continuity, okay? And so I set about trying to design a solution for this. And actually, I've been knocking around the idea of how to solve that, you know, to have continuity in an economic space for like more than 10 years. But I committed to doing it on the Ethereum blockchain maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And so I'll show you the result. So this is the Beastie board. And basically, I tried to solve a number of problems that I think the $1 million homepage has that I think needed solving. So the first one was continuity, okay? And continuity, what do I mean by that? The $1 million homepage, basically you could buy a 10 by 10 plot, but then you couldn't sell it, right? So it would never change. There wasn't even a facility to change the image or to change the link or anything. So I thought, well, it needs to be dynamic. It needs to have some kind of market so that it can have continuity and it can, you know, so it doesn't just fill up and then nobody can get in. So that required some solution for economic replacement, you know, quote unquote. And so I thought, okay, how to solve economic replacement? Well, the easiest way to do that would be you can buy a plot and then you can sell it, right? You can just sell it to someone else when you don't want it anymore. And I just thought that was boring. So I took a bit of a different direction, and I'll see if I can do that for you now. So basically, I'll explain what I'm doing with all this jumping around in a minute, but I'll see if I can demo something for you. So this is the process of creating a Beastie. Um, and it's not exactly a pixel-based system because the pixels in the space are not kind of one-to-one with screen pixels, right? But yeah, so they're circular and they have balances, okay? Each Beastie has a balance inside it. And it doesn't own the space, it pays rent, right? And there's an important reason that it works on rent or rather ownership. So oh, okay. I never run into this before, so that's good. Here we go. That should work. It's not working. Okay. So I'm signing a transaction because all of this is on the chain, right? So all of everything in the system is a smart contract. So this board is a smart contract, and the Beastie is also, it's minting a smart contract now. So there we go. So it has an address, and it has my wallet as the owner. So let me just show you this quickly. So if I open this, so this is the smart contract that was just deployed. You can see it on Gnosis Scan. You can see the source code and all of that stuff if you're so inclined. And oh dear, let me just share my screen again. Okay. So so it's paying rent. It doesn't own. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we
Okay,
can hear you.
great. So it doesn't actually own this space, okay? What happens is it has this balance of 1.57 fake. And actually something interesting is happening because that balance is going down quite quickly, quicker than I would have expected. Is this going to be a problem? Ah, I know what's happening. The billing rate is too high. Let me see if I can fix that. Okay. Let's see if that helps. So I'm actually now live demoing something that I didn't mean to live demo. Okay. um so let's hope no more things are breaking. But basically what's being demonstrated is the billing mechanism. So you deposit a balance into the Beastie and the balance is billed until it runs out. And at the point where it runs out, the Beastie disappears. And you're going to see that in a minute because the billing rate on this Beastie is higher than I anticipated because this is a new board that I just created and I didn't configure it. So you're going to see it run out of balance and hopefully disappear in real time, which is fun. Okay, so let's but let me see if I can demo something just quickly. Okay, so is this going to work? No. There might still be some bugs in the system. Okay, that's what I wanted to show you. So basically, this beastie, this sloth, has a higher balance than the frog, okay? And that gives it the ability to shrink it, right? It can actually shrink. Like, so if you own space, you wouldn't be able to do this because it would be your space and then nothing would kick you out, it would be yours. You understand? But because space is not owned, there's a mechanism. So even if the board appears to be full, it's not actually full because you can shrink another beastie, right? Does that make any sense? If you have a higher balance and you need to pay it, there's a commitment price associated with shrinking another beastie. So this is this kind of game mechanics, game but not a game aspect of the system. And so you make a commitment. This is just due to economics, so that somebody doesn't come in, cause chaos, and then just leave and take their money with them. So there's a counter incentive to doing this. There's several counter incentives actually, but this is the mechanism whereby the board can become full, and it can be full of different entities, and it can still grow in value because you can come in, and if you're willing to pay more money, you can shrink someone else, and so on, and so the board can continue to grow in value. Okay, so that's what I want to demo. So that gives it continuity because now there's a mechanism for replacing the entities on the board. Okay, and it also gives it some kind of excitement because if you come into a space and shrink someone else, then like, are they going to be happy with you for doing that? And what's everyone else going to think? So there's a social dynamic. There's an element of social dynamics that gets introduced as well. Okay. 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 So that's the first thing that I want to solve is continuity. Okay. So the second thing is scalability. Okay. This is not a very big space. And I wanted to basically to make it so that you can find things. And I think that, on the $1 million homepage, this is deceptive because there's actually 3,000 plots. You don't think it when you look at it, but there's 3,000, like a million pixels divided by 100, which is, 10 by 10 plot divided by 100 is 10,000. But because some of them are bigger than 10 by 10, there's actually 3,000 different adverts on this page. And you wouldn't think there was so many if you look at it. You'd probably guess there was maybe like 200 or 300, right? But there's actually 3,000. So what that's telling you is it's extremely hard to navigate this and find all the stuff, okay? So because of that, if you want to be able to find anything, you probably want to use some kind of tree, like an index, like how an index helps you find a book in a library. I know that's a completely redundant example, but indexes is still obviously very important in computer science. But basically, that's how you make something easy to find. Okay, so the the Beastie board is also kind of a tree because any Beastie can be a portal to another board. So, for example, this is the top level board, and I can, if it has one of these buttons on the side, then it's a portal, and you can jump inside of it, right? So I can, so this is another board, and etc. Okay, so that can be infinitely deep. So that gives you scalability, right? It's a kind of in a recursive fashion, okay? And the other thing that I want to solve was this terrible problem that it's basically just like so hard on the eyes. It's almost impossible to look at. So the way that I wanted a way to get people to care about, like, about their neighbors, basically, right? Who are they next to? So I introduced this idea of links. So you can actually link to another Beastie, okay? What do these links do? Well, what the links do is they increase the security of the Beastie that you're linking to, okay? So a link is also an economic object because it has a balance, right? And what it will do is it will increase the security of the Beastie that you're linking to. And this is like basically like vouching for someone. It's like saying, I'm, gonna put some amount of whatever coin, I'm gonna pay the opportunity cost on that coin to make a link to someone. And it doesn't need to be, any significant amount of coin, but it does have some kind of social signaling value. And it also makes them safer because it makes it more difficult for another Beastie to come in and shrink them because of the security uh, metric, right? The security value. Okay. Um, so, but because the links are more effective over shorter distances, that it gives you a reason to be closer to things that to your friends, as well as the existing reason to be closer to things that are, similar to what you're trying to do. Okay. Because, in many cities, people will have observed that, um, you know, maybe not modern high streets, but if you go to like Buenos Aires or some third world country, very often there'll be parts of town where, like, everyone is selling fabric, for example, is in kind of one part of town. If you want a fabric, you go to this part of town, and that's where you buy all the fabrics, right? Or if you want to buy like some obscure music, then you'd go to a certain part of London where there's, like Soho or Camden or something, where all the music shops are, because that's, they open close by because there's already foot traffic, there's already that market for that thing that they want to sell. So the same principle applies here, right? You're gonna think about, where am I gonna place my Beastie? Well, I want to be somewhere on the board that I'm going to be safe, near my friends, basically, so that there's some aspect of strength in numbers. But also, where is the commercial activity that I want on this board? If it's over here, if I'm a rapper and the rappers are here, then I'm going to be over here. So if you think about it, these are the same criteria that we use in real life when we think about where do we want to be. It's a balance between where are your friends and family and where is the commercial or other activity that you're interested in, where can you make a living, right? So it's the same kind of choice. And also the linking system, and even to an extent the shrinking is analogous to, to social dynamics if you think about it in terms of social credit. So like saying something nice about someone is vouching for them, which in turn puts your own social credit on the line, and vice versa. If you say something nasty about them, then that's a statement as well. That's a signal as well. So and there can be costs. So the same principles apply in this space, right? And the links can be negative as well as positive. Okay. Um, so I think, with that, I try to give some aspect of locality. So you think hard about where you're going to place yourself on the board. Um, and if you have that, then you can coordinate with your neighbors, right? You have some skin in the game because, there's a balance. You put a balance into this Beastie, you're interested in the advertising benefit that it brings you. So you're gonna try and hopefully try and keep your side of the street clean and tidy to avoid the $1 million homepage Piccadilly Circus effect. Yeah. Um, yeah. So there you go. So solving the issues, locality, scalability, and continuity. Okay. So that's how this product kind of came into being. And then there was a ton of, smart contract programming. Actually, as the interface can be a bit buggy right now because I just recreated it. The original interface was actually in WebGL. So WebGL was cool because you can do a lot of fun stuff with it, and it's 3D, obviously, so that opens up some new possibilities, right? What's the problem with WebGL? You end up spending hours and days and weeks messing around with shaders in GLSL, and it's just like absolutely not feasible to be spending this much time on things that in HTML and CSS and JavaScript really only take you 5 or 10 minutes. You can spend hours messing around with, sign distance functions and all kinds of weird stuff, and it's just not worth it, at least at this stage. But it was pretty cool while it lasted, I guess. Yeah. Okay. So, oh, did I did. One sec. So this this is a slide that I made for Bread a couple of days ago, and and it explained what are the different things that a Beastie board can do for Bread. Okay, so why am I talking about Bread all of a sudden? Well, boards can actually have any currency, any ERC20 token in this case. Every board has a currency, so so the top board on the Gnosis instance of Beastie board is the gas token, the chain gas token, which is DAI, WX DAI, wrapped DAI, and and for the bread cooperative Beastie, the token is bread. So that means that if you want to put a Beastie on this board, you need to deposit bread into it. Okay. And the rental aspect is not actually necessary. We don't need to be charging rent, but it is a possible, income stream down the line. Just before well, no, I guess we've already seen that. So, oh, sorry, I was showing the wrong tab, but yeah, I was just saying that the bread cooperative Beastie has a board, and the token for the board is bread, as you can see on the left-hand side. Every board has a token. Okay, so yeah, this slide is kind of explaining what we can do with the Beastie board for bread. But it's sort of long-winded, and it was a couple of days ago, so I want to show you this slide. Why will it work, right? So I want to show you what the board brings together, which is why I think, because this experiment, it is a novel kind of experimental project, I guess. So why do I think it will work if it's tried, right? And I think it's the combination of these ingredients. Okay, so I think that so let's start with ecosystem map, because I mean this is the thing that the bread community is currently interested in. Like how can we find a solution for an ecosystem map, right? And I think it's the one that my project most directly connects with in terms of its current interests. Okay, at least listed current interests. And so the ecosystem map. So what's the problem with an ecosystem map? Like there can be a collaborative, map that people can add themselves to, or there can be like you know, a Google Sheet that you can add your project to, right? The problem is that, those things, if you add your project to a Google Sheet, you just forget about it afterwards. Like there's nothing that makes the Google Sheet interesting enough for people to keep returning to it, you know? And the data in the sheet can very easily go stale. So, or an ecosystem map, like similarly, there could be a shared Google drawing or something like that that you can, or like a GitHub repo. But it probably wouldn't have enough gravitas on its own to keep people coming back to the map or the Google Sheet to like update their data and make sure the data is up to date. Okay. It just wouldn't be engaging enough to make sure that it's up to date. So, but at the same time, an ecosystem map is valuable, or would be valuable for projects, because then the community, the projects inside the community could more easily advertise, not in the sense of like I'm trying to sell you something, but in the sense of, hey, I exist, maybe let's collaborate, and I want to get some attention for my project, and I want you to know that I exist, and if and maybe there's collaboration opportunities. So that's what I think an ecosystem. That's one thing an ecosystem map is useful for. But an ecosystem map is also like a proof of community, because it lets people outside of the community, and in the case of bread, people outside the community means potential bread token holders. Okay, so this is quite important. It lets them know that there is something happening in this community, because you have this map with a bunch of demand for space on this map, right? And so that gives them a sense of FOMO. So here we go to the FOMO factor. So what do you want to do with this board? You want it to be de facto, anyone who is anyone is on this board, okay? Because that will create FOMO, like, oh my God, I want to be on this board, okay? And if the board is like full enough, that you can't actually get on, you can't even get on there because it's already too full, well, you can go to like a sub board of someone, you can be in a sub community inside the space, because it's scalable, right? So it's got this kind of scalable, FOMO community aspect. Yeah. So what else? So like another reason to be on the board is reputational proof, right? So reputational proof and FOMO in this case, it's about your social proof, right? So being on the top level of a board that has demand is like being on a conference speakers list. If you go to a conference and nobody knows who you are, nobody cares. I mean, be a nice guy and everything, talk to people, that's great. But if you're on the speakers list, suddenly it's like, oh, he's a speaker, there must be something interesting, So that's a reputational proof. And you can actually get this from being on the board. Why does being on a Beastie board give you reputational proof? Because you can see how long a Beastie has been there. Maybe it's been there for 5 minutes, in which case reputational proof might not mean that much. But if it's been there for like 6 months, right? Uh, if it's been there for 6 months, it was created months and months ago, and if it has people linking to it as well, these are indicators of social proof. So hard indicators of social proof. So that's a reason that that people would want to be on the board, and this is pulling people towards your token. Okay, so you've tied in all of these aspects, which is like this. You've got skin in the game, so you care about the information that you've got inside this board. Um, you've got you've got a thing that is drawing people from the outside to say, hey, maybe I want to be a part of this. Maybe I can get some reputational proof. Maybe I can get some attention. You've got an ecosystem map, which is showing to the world all of the different projects, and it generates news. Okay, because the board is generating events. There's new beasties. These can be piped into a Discord channel or something like that, right? There's new beasties. There's potentially intrigue because, like, who is this new person? There is potentially drama because of these mechanisms, these kind of like game mechanic mechanisms. And I want to clarify, there are ways to moderate and attenuate the drama level if it's not to your liking. We don't need to have, you can make drama, well, you can make the replacement rate. It's hard to explain, but basically, there is a cost of certain actions, right? And you can configure that cost, to your liking. So you can make it impossible if you want to shrink someone, or you can make it really easy if you want a higher replacement rate. But you can configure your drama level, okay? And this gives you incentive to return, and it gives community engagement because there are things happening, right? So it increases your community engagement. So I think all of these things are, it's really an incentive system that is designed to create some kind of an environment like sort of like a nightclub or a bar, where people, everyone wants to be at the bar or at the nightclub or at the event with the famous people. That's what it's designed to kind of create. And that can be leveraged to pull more people into the project and to pull potentially more money into the token, right? So that's what I think it's about. So yeah, let me see if I have uh, anything else to demo. I mean, there's been a lot of development recently. The board has a bunch of different configuration for the media. I think that you can change some of the colors if it is working, which, yeah, there you go. So, but I mean, this is a shitty kind of configuration of the theme, but anything could be changed. Background image or whatever. There's a bunch of different economics, which is committed into the blockchain. Oh yeah. Um, I recently created this idea of forms. So, if if it was a board for bread, like there could be any number of forms where people can say, you can list your podcast in a kind of a structured Google Sheets type of format. So there can be many different fields, right? So if it was a podcast, so it would be like name, uh, URL, yeah, subject or whatever. You get the idea, right? And then people can fill that information in, so you get one row for every beastie. Okay, so this gives you this structured information aspect to this, And what else? Yeah. Uh, so yeah, all this stuff is they're transferable objects as well. The Beasties, they're like NFTs in that regard. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So if you want, I can answer any questions. If anyone has any questions, thanks for attending. Thanks for coming to my TED talk.
Yes, thanks for sharing.
Thank
my
you.
God. Excuse me.
I really like the spatial element from like a kind of spatial humanities perspective of like providing a space on the internet where it feels like you can kind of walk into a different neighborhood or you can kind of roam around and you can end up in a place you never really knew before.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like there aren't social media systems with discovery, right? I mean, if you ask me, like modern social media is actually, if anything, is designed to limit your discovery. You know, everything is like beholden to an algorithm, you know, and that algorithm really decides what you're going to discover. And it's an infinite hyperdimensional space. You know, because the structure of it is a connection graph. You know, you follow certain people, they follow you, or other people follow you. You know, so it's an infinite dimension. It's a hypergraph, right? And the Beastie board, by comparison, is fully navigable. So this gives you a totally different discovery experience, and also some degree of censorship resistance as
Yeah.
well. And you know, this is something that really doesn't exist in social media. Not to
No.
mention, you can build social media on top of this. You can actually use the tree structure to determine in a fully transparent way, you know, what is the content that you're going to see. And I have some of this implemented, only I don't have it implemented in the new interface. You know, but if there was activity, if there was a customer for this, then basically the way it works is PCs can make posts, and you see the posts that are in the frame that you zoom into. Okay, so you go here, like I zoom in here and I see Beastie Boards post, right? I zoom in like here, I'm going to see content from Light Color Maker and Panda Beta Tester. If I'm zoomed out, I'm going to see posts from the biggest accounts for Beasties, you know, in the space. And if I zoom into this area, then I'll see, you know, more granular social media posts. So yeah, there's a completely different
Have you
and more
ever
transparent social media mechanism here as well.
Have you ever heard, I just put a link to it in the chat. Have you ever heard the theory of the derive from the Situationalist International? It's like an
I
old,
have not.
like late 50s kind of anarchist text. It's basically about how if you kind of start walking through a city and you don't follow the roads and the streets and the like grid, you can kind of wander around based on what appeals to you. If a sound catches you and you go towards it, or if you see a color that you like, it shapes your understanding of where you live and the place you're in. And so I think it's really interesting to kind of extrapolate that on the web in the way that you've done here, because I think that I think probably other people have explored similar concepts on the internet. But I think in terms of what you've put together here, this is really compelling for the context of this server.
Yeah, thank you for your compliment. Um, yeah, I I mean, it's a very fertile, if I may say so, it's a very fertile project because there's so many things you can do with it. There's the social media thing, which brings in a whole bunch of different, you know, consequences if you implement social media on top of it. But there's also micro apps, right? So you could create a micro app system on top of the project. And the interesting thing about potentially publishing a micro app in a Beastie is that you don't need to, you can plug into an ecosystem, a social ecosystem, right? With like, you know, already connected Web3 wallets, um, and you don't need to get a domain name. You don't need a domain name. You can forget about, that problem. And you don't need to figure out marketing because that's what the board does. Duh. So, and you can potentially, like, I've already thought of a way to architect a bunch of a modular kind of a plugin based, iframe based application architecture for micro apps in a Beastie board. There's a ton of stuff you can do with it. Like I've half coded, some DAO functionality as well, with on-chain Merkle proofs and that kind of shit. You can do anything. It's a very, very general thing. You can implement different kinds of economics and blah blah. Yeah, but that's really interesting about the theory of the derive. I'm going to look at that. So thank you.
Yeah, I did like a kind of media and cultural studies like undergrad at a like liberal arts college here in the States. And so I was taking a lot of weird classes where we were doing like weird assignments, like go on a derive, and, like take pictures in the neighborhood and reflect on how it changed your relationship to the city. And so I think
Yeah,
there's a lot of this stuff that is like coming up in kind of natural ways throughout this DAO or throughout like the cooperative, like the bread cooperative. And I think
yeah.
there's also always kind of, it's like history repeats itself, maybe not, but it does often rhyme. And so good
What
work.
are you referring to with history repeats itself? What are you referring to?
I mean, just kind of the general concept of like something can be like put out into the world, somebody like nearly 80 years ago, and it may have gotten kind of lost in the sands of time, especially in a time where a lot of stuff had to be handwritten or like printed.
Hmm.
But then so it makes it something that's kind of like more obscure or less likely to be encountered. But then people who come through and kind of are in the similar lineage, it kind of it like reappears a sort of naturally, kind of organically, right?
Right, right. Yeah. You can stumble across a similar theoretical landscape. Maybe even due to similar reasons and trying to solve similar problems. Yeah.
So I think I have some questions. I don't know if other people like. I think King was asking if someone can create if we can test it now. But I think who created
I think
already.
someone already did. Yes,
Yes,
there's a new thingy here. There's Butter, and Butter has even made a link. That's amazing. So thank you, Butter.
that's probably rather. Or who is that one?
Okay. Yeah, it's owned by 132.
Ah, okay, it's King. Nice. So I have questions about like the incentives to, like for example, what's like the business model you think of for the Beastie board, like for this project?
The business model.
Yeah, like if
What business?
well,
What,
basically, if
for who?
you
For
if you
me?
yes, if you plan to have revenue, and if yes, like where would it come from?
Oh, um, well, I mean, yeah, I'm making income already thanks to Butter. Actually, let me show you. Um, so you know, the basic answer is that boards are billing. Okay, they're always billing. So every on this top board here, on this board, um, at a radius of 100. So Butter is 67, radius 67. But at a radius of 100, I'm going to make 0.0009 WX die, right? Uh, so if I can create a board, like if I own a board and I create it, for me, and I get a bunch of demand on this board, I can make an income from it. But then you can make an income from your own board as well. Like anyone can make an income this way. You know, if you have any kind of influence, you can leverage it to make an income by making a board. And actually, there's an argument to be made that it's even better than creating like a Patreon or something like that. Because gatekeeping your content sucks, right? Because then you have this conflict of interest between, you know, the people giving content to people that are paying for your content, but you also publish the best of your content for free anyway, you know, to gain new to gain views and to gain, you know, a bigger market, right? But if you just say like, if you want to support me, then you know, here's my board. You know, you can create a different kind of relationship with your audience, and they will just pay you something, you know, just to be there in your space. And there's nothing to do with like, you know, gatekeeping content or, you know, anonymous donations or anything like that. There's a social interaction taking place, you know. So I think, you know, so that's the rent thingy is one thing. Anyone can take advantage of this.
So
You could also think about like transaction fees. You could think about different kinds of economic applications of BCs on the board, you know, if they all have their own token or whatever, you know, so you can do a bunch of different stuff with it. And in terms of me personally, I don't really care about any of that. Like, I'm just kind of excited about, you know, having work and you know, making this into a movement. That would be my ultimate goal, I suppose.
So the top board owner gets rent, and then like the owners of portals also, or how does it work?
Yeah, so this is the top board, and I own it. But yeah, the breadboard, for example, currently I own it, but I don't want to own it. So I can actually transfer it. Like I can go to the bread cooperative, and if I change to my other wallet, I can actually transfer. I can transfer the ownership of this Beastie to someone else, right? And then, you know, someone in the bread cooperative would own it. And you know, then if there's a bunch of BCs denominated with bread balances, initially I don't think you'd want to charge rent. I don't think you'd want to. I don't think you'd want to, you know, try and make a lot of money in rental income. But you know, if there was a lot of demand, then down the line, potentially you could make a couple of bucks in this board. Because yeah, like the BCs are paying, you know, they're potentially paying rent to the board owner. So I don't make rent from every board in the system. I only make rent from the top board if I own it, right? But if you present the bread cooperative board on its own website, then that would be the top board. So, you know, yeah.
I see. I see. Yeah.
Cool. Any other questions?
I have
All
a
right.
few, but yeah, I can type them. But I think it would be nice. I mean, it's already we can start using it basically, right?
Yeah, sure. You, yeah, it's working. It seems to be working. You. Yeah, cool. I guess we'll wrap it up here for today. And yeah, thanks everyone.